Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I want to switch it up a bit, do a rankings video, and rank every single first line in the NHL. Now, these lines are brought to you by Daily Faceoff. Obviously, I'm not the hockey guy. I don't watch every game, so I'm not going to know the lines. So I had to go on the most recent lines, which is Daily Faceoff, which means injuries are taken into consideration and stuff like that. But let's get straight into the rankings, starting off with what I believe to be the worst first line in the NHL. At number 32 comes the Seattle Kraken. The Seattle Kraken right now have a line of Morgan Geekie, Cal Yarncroke, and Jordan Eberle at this in the first line. I don't think any one of these three players is a first liner. Now, Morgan Geekie, he's doing fine for what he is. Again, not a first liner, like a third, fourth liner. Yarncroke, third, fourth liner. Eberle is the only person who you could maybe make a case for on the first line. But really, they're an expansion team. And this first line, it looks like a first line of an expansion team. But moving on to number 31, this is a team that you guys might actually be not very happy with the placement of, and that is the Islanders. Now, the Islanders are running a first line of Anders Lee on the left side, Brock Nelson at center, and Beauvillier on the right side. Obviously, the offense isn't going to be as great as other lines, as they are coached under the Barry Trotz system, which is very defensive. But really, with a few of these players like Anders Lee not having a good season, Beauvillier also not having a good season. Nelson's the only person here who is actually playing up to expectations. But this first line is a little bit rough, and it shows you that the Islanders, even though they are a defensive team, they don't have very much offense as well. I don't think this shows you why they're not as good as many other teams, is because they don't have that firepower on their team at all. And yeah, I think this first line is 31st in the league. But moving on to number 30, and I was a little bit surprised, a little bit of a carry, but at 30 we have the Arizona Coyotes. The Arizona Coyotes first line is on the left side, Clayton Keller, center Travis Boyd, and on the right side, Nick Schmaltz. Clayton Keller hard carries this line to number 30, and it's kind of sad when you have to carry your line to 30. But Clayton Keller, he's having a fantastic year, a definite first liner. Travis Boyd and Schmaltz also having good years, but not people who should be on their first line. And this team, a team that's obviously doing very bad this year, nobody expects them to have a good first line. But no, good job to Clayton Keller for carrying them all the way up to number 30, because that's actually pretty impressive. But moving on to number 29, and at 29, I have the Montreal Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens first line reads as Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Josh Anderson as their most recent first line. Cole Caulfield has looked way better since Martin St. Louis took over. Nick Suzuki has been not great this year, but who has on the Montreal Canadiens? He's their leading leading their team in points right now. And then Josh Anderson, he's not all about the points. He hits, he plays good. I think he plays hard forechecker, and I think that he is a top 6 forward, not a first liner. But Montreal, also another team that's in a rebuilding position, just starting to go into that rebuild, and not expected to have a good first line. All you really care about is that your young guys are doing well, like Cole Caulfield, like Nick Suzuki, and lately they have been. But moving on to number 28, and at 28 I have the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, Chicago Blackhawks line status is a little hurt, because instead of having Alex DeBrincat, you have Dominic Kubalik, or Strome. DeBrincat's a left winger, right? I think it's the left winger. So you have Kubalik replacing DeBrincat, and that sort of like hurts him a lot. Actually, that hurts him a lot. So Kubalik, Strome, Kane, their line, as you can see on the thing right now. Kubalik not having a great year. Strome not having quite the bounce back year you hope for. And Patrick Kane helping carry this line to number 28. I could see an argument for having him a bit higher, but without Alex DeBrincat, I just don't think this is a very good first line league-wide. But now on to number 27. And number 27 is the Ottawa Senators. And the Ottawa Senators right now have left winger Brady Tkachuk, centerman Josh Norris, and right winger Zach Stanford on their first line. I like 2/3 of that first line. Zach Stanford is a third line guy for the most part. Obviously, they have injuries. Drake Batherson's out, so that's going to hurt him a bit. But no, Ottawa, they're building their way up. They're trying to get better. You got to love Brady Tkachuk. You got to love Norris. And they're really trying to build that young core of forwards up. And it's looking good. It's looking good. 27, a low spot, but next year with Drake Batherson back and new draft picks coming in, they could be much higher. When I do this again, I probably will do this again, maybe. Now on to number 26. And at number 26, I have the Vancouver Canucks. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, They're not in a playoff spot, and this is a team that's pushing for a playoff spot, so they're close. But I don't think they have much firepower on that first line, other than centerman JT Miller. His wingers right now are Brock Besser and Tanner Pearson, who are both having decently disappointing years. But overall, as a first line, it's just not great. I think you could find some better wingers for JT Miller to make this a really good first line. Or you could find a better left winger and hope that Brock Besser really finds that goal-scoring touch again that he had a couple seasons ago. But on to number 25. And at number 25, I have the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas' first line is severely hurt without Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone. This line would be top in the league if they had both those guys, because I think you could run like Eichel, Stone, Pacioretty, fire. But obviously, two of those three guys are hurt, and one of them just came back from injury. So Vegas, right now, instead of those guys, they're running Evgeny Dadonov, Jack Eichel, and Chandler Stephenson. Stephenson having a very good year. Eichel, obviously coming out, he's playing fine, but he's trying to come out of that like year off. He hasn't played in a year. And Evgeny Dadonov's not a first liner. So they would be much higher if they had the other three guys, if they had Pacioretty and Stone back in their lineup. Up to number 24, and at 24 is the Anaheim Ducks. Now, the Anaheim Ducks have Adam Henrique with Ryan Getzlaf at center and Troy Terry at right wing. Troy Terry having a fantastic year, goal scoring, going off the charts. Ryan Getzlaf bouncing back from what was a rough year last year. It turns out he wasn't aging. He was just having an off year because he's doing great this year. And Adam Henrique, who's having a pretty good year for himself. So this first line is solid. I think that for it to be higher on the list, you got to find a better center, because I think Getzlaf's a good center, but not quite a first-line center. And Adam Henrique, although he's having a good year, I don't think he's quite a first-line winger. So that is why they are all the way down at 24. But now on to 23. And at 23rd place, I have put the Los Angeles Kings. Now, the Los Angeles Kings don't have actually a bad player on their first line. Like, by that, I mean like a third liner or something like that. Running Anze Kopitar, who's centering Kempe and Iafallo. I like all three of these guys. Kempe and Iafallo are both very solid players. Just, I don't think that they're first-line players, but again, all these players are very solid, and they've earned themselves, like, there's a lot of good first lines. So right now we're into the territory of pretty solid first lines, and I think LA has a solid one. It's just not a top-tier first line in the NHL. On to 22, and at 22, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets right now have Boone Jenner centering Gustav Nyquist and Patrick Laine. Gustav Nyquist, I think he's having a little bit of a down year. I think he's actually picked it back up a bit. He might be playing pretty good now. Laine obviously bouncing back, playing fantastic, and Jenner having a great year. This is the first line that you wouldn't expect to be this high on the list, because at the start of the season, you know, Columbus was seen as a team that was going to miss the playoffs and possibly be last in the division. But right now, they're pushing for a playoff spot, and this first line is definitely helping them drag them there, considering it's doing pretty solid on Columbus right now. It's been hot as of recent. It's been really hot recently. Like, who expected Boone Jenner to be at 23 goals halfway through the season? He's on pace for like 35 goals. That's a lot of goals. Maybe even 40. Like, he's Boone Jenner. This is a guy who was like third, fourth line, and now he's like a 30-goal scorer. So big jump right there. But now on to the 21st spot on my list. And at 21, I have the New Jersey Devils. New Jersey Devils, a really young first line with Jack Hughes centering Sharangovich and Mercer. And this is a line that in a couple years I could have them in the top 5. Who knows how good these guys end up turning out. But Hughes has turned out to be fantastic. He's over a point per game right now. Mercer, obviously coming into the league, a pleasant surprise for the Devils, playing very good. And Sharangovich, his offense has picked up a little bit over the last few weeks, because it was pretty slow to start the season. But Sharangovich, very good overall player, all-around player. And this is the first line that in a few years could end up being much higher on my list. But at number 20, in the 20th spot, I have St. Louis. Now, St. Louis is down at 20. Obviously, I said there's a lot of good first lines. But all three players of these guys, it's sort of like the Kings. They're all solid. They're all very good, but not like amazing or anything. Like, you got Ryan O'Reilly, a little bit of a down year, but still pretty solid. He's centering David Perron, again, pretty solid player. And Brandon Saad, again, pretty solid player. Now, one of these guys is an elite level player. They're all like very solid, very good two-way forwards. Just a good veteran line. And yeah, that's really it. They're solid, and I think that they are middle of the pack. No elite forwards or anything like that. On to number 19, and at number 19, I have the Detroit Red Wings. And if I told Detroit fans this before the season, they would have been like, whoa. Like, they would have been like, wow, because this has been a great year for Dylan Larkin, who's over a point per game right now, and Lucas Raymond, who's playing fantastic and possibly could win the Calder. And you got Vladislav Nemestikov, who kind of drags this line down a bit because he's more of a third liner. But really, as a whole, the line is pretty solid. Like, you got Dylan Larkin, who's producing at a high rate. Raymond, a rookie coming in, like, pleasant surprise, just like Mercer was, but way more. Like, I didn't even think Raymond was going to be on the team this year. I was a little off with that one, but no, this line is very offensive and very fun to watch as well. But now, moving on to number 18. And at number 18, I have the Philadelphia Flyers. The Philadelphia Flyers first line right now is Claude Giroux centering left winger Joel Farabee and right winger Cam Atkinson. This line, Giroux, a very solid first line center, always has been very consistent. Atkinson having a very good year for himself. That's pretty much a win-win trade for Columbus and Philly. Atkinson's been playing very good. And then Joel Farabee, although he is having a little bit of a disappointing year, he's still young and he can bounce back. And you know what? Considering how bad Philadelphia's been this year, this line is actually doing pretty well. Like, this first line is on a team that you expect to be better. And yeah, there's just been a lot of injuries for Philly overall, so they haven't been as good as they probably would hope to be themselves. Well, they weren't as good as they'd hope to be themselves, but injuries definitely have something to do with that. And this first line has definitely not been the problem because they are a pretty solid first line. But moving on to number 17. And at number 17, I have the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks right now have Tomas Hertl centering Timo Meier and Barabanov. This is a very solid first line. Barabanov's fit in very well with that first line, fit in very well with the Sharks. Timo Meier obviously having a fantastic year, and Thomas Hertl doing good as usual. This line's just very solid, although Thomas Hertl may be leaving pretty soon, probably at the trade deadline. As for right now, this is a pretty solid first line. But moving on to number 16. So we're going into the top half of the first lines in the NHL, and kicking off the top half of the first lines, I have the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets have Mark Scheifele centering Paul Stastny and Blake Wheeler. A lot of people get mad at Blake Wheeler or don't think he belongs there, and I get it. His defense may not be great, but look at that offensive numbers: 7 goals, 30 assists for 37 points in 40 games. Very solid offensive numbers. And then you got Scheifele, very good center. He had a little bit of a rough start, really has come back from that rough start. And Stastny may be having a down year and probably also get traded. But overall, it's a pretty solid first line. Like, not bad. It's not one of the top first lines, but it's not bad. And Winnipeg's got good depth, so it's a little bit weird that they're where they are in the standings. But their first line, it's not bad. It's solid. Moving on to 15, and this is a carried 15. I have the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers' first line last game was Warren Foegele. This is a team I actually do watch sometimes. Warren Foegele, Connor McDavid, and Zach Hyman. Connor McDavid hard carried to number 15. Warren Foegele, not a first liner. He's a third line grinder, maybe. Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid. He is carried this line to where it is. He's fantastic, and he is Connor McDavid. He's the greatest player in the world. He has slowed down a bit, but since Jay Woodcroft took over, his points have gone up a bit. And then Zach Hyman, a good grinder, good on that first line. Really, Warren Foegele kind of takes us down a little bit, but Connor McDavid carries it right back up. There are elite lines that are better than this, but Connor McDavid. So Connor McDavid gets 15th, but moving on to 14th. Shocker. I am shocked to see this. I have the Buffalo Sabres. Like, looking at their lines, their first line is actually pretty solid. Buffalo right now is running the first line of Jeff Skinner, Tage Thompson, and Alex Tuch. Jeff Skinner, a very good bounce-back year. He's scoring quite a bit of goals, which is something he needed to do. He hasn't had a very good season since the first year he came over to Buffalo. Then in center, you got Tage Thompson. Man, is he broken out. That Ryan O'Reilly trade no longer looks horrible because Tage Thompson has been fantastic. He's 41 points in 51 games. That's very good. Way above what I expected. And then Alex Tuch has fit in so nice in the Buffalo. He's been fantastic. That Eichel trade doesn't even look that bad because I didn't even think it looked bad, but it looks better now because Alex Tuch is actually playing better than Eichel has in Vegas, which makes sense because Eichel's just been hurt and come back from not playing in a year. But man, this first line is actually very good considering where Buffalo is in the standings. And who knows, maybe next year Buffalo could have a solid team and maybe even push for the playoffs. Maybe. We'll see how the offseason goes. But for now, we're going to move on to number 13. And at 13, we have the other New York team, and that is the Rangers. And the Rangers right now have Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, and Lafreniere on that right side. Now, Chris Kreider having a fantastic year. Mika Zibanejad playing pretty solid. Playing pretty solid. And then you got Lafreniere, who's been better lately. I'll give him that. He's been scoring more. I've been seeing his name on the goal sheet a bit. but overall it has not been a great season, and you definitely expected more from him. So you got 2/3 of a great line here right now, and maybe next year 3/3 of a great line if Lafreniere can really take that game up to his next step, which is what I think will happen. But as for right now, you got a solid goal scorer, Chris Kreider, in that Maurice Richard race, and Mika Zibanejad, very solid forward. And is Capo Caco the one usually on the right side, or is, I don't know, I thought it was Panarin for some reason, but I think I was just off for some reason. But anyway, moving on to number 12, I have the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins, obviously known to have the perfection line. Not so perfection line right now because they're not running that. They're sort of spreading out the depth a little bit because their first line right now is Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and not David Pastrnak. It's Jake DeBrusk, who has actually played pretty good on that first line. Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron, they reverse age. As they age, they get better. That's just how it works. And then Jake DeBrusk had a rough start, and he's really been playing better lately. Still wants a trade, but has been playing better. Got a hat trick the other night, so he's really been fitting well on that first line. And yeah, this is a very good line. Not a top tier line. I do think it's overrated a bit. Like the perfection line that's not with Jake DeBrusk is overrated a bit, but still very good. And definitely a top half line in the league. But moving on to number 11, and at 11 I have the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators are an odd team because at the start of the season I didn't like them, their lines. I didn't like their line. I didn't like their forward group. I thought it didn't have good depth. They didn't really have a top line. It's just there were so many things wrong with the team. I thought their defense and goaltending were good, but that forward group was just not good. Turns out it's pretty solid. Their first line is Philip Forsberg, Mikael Granlund, and Matt Duchene, and all three of these guys have been having very good seasons. Philip Forsberg having over a point per game, played fantastic. Mikael Granlund bouncing back from last year. Was last year a rough year? I don't even know. Either way, having a good year. And then a bounce back is Matt Duchene. Matt Duchene at about a point per game, playing very good this season. And this line is just three very solid guys playing very good right now. And there's really not much to say. It's definitely one of the best lines in the league, hence why I have them at 11. But not quite the top 10, because now we're going to move into the top 10 lines in the league. And kicking off the top 10 lines in the league is the Washington Capitals. The Washington Capitals. First line is Evgeny Kuznetsov centering Alex Ovechkin and Tom Wilson. You got Ovechkin, the goal scorer, guy who's insane, going to pass Gretzky here eventually. Come on, it's going to happen. And then you got I keep wanting to say Svechnikov. And then you got Kuznetsov, who has a ton of assists, probably all from Ovechkin's goals. And then you got Tom Wilson, very good at getting points, very tough guy. You got to love him. Hits a lot. Very good guy. But this line is a very good, well-built line. Kuznetsov's really stepped up to fill that role and is having a bounce-back year from last year. And this line, they've just been producing well for most of the year. It's been cold through parts, but for most of the year, they've been producing at a pretty good rate. But moving on to number 9. At number 9, I have the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild right now have Ryan Hartman centering Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. Ryan Hartman is having a fantastic year, but not as fantastic as Kirill Kaprizov because, man, he's been great. Remember when people were questioning, should they sign him to the $9 million contract? Is that too high? It's a bargain, apparently, an absolute bargain of a contract. He's been fantastic. Cut that out for a sec. He's been fantastic. He has 65 points in 51 games. And then on the right side, Matt Zuccarello is having what could be a career year. He's been also fantastic. This whole first line is just playing very well and is definitely helping the Minnesota. Well, obviously, but no, it's been so dynamic offensively. A team that used to be not fun to watch and so boring is not anymore because of this line right here. Moving on to number 8. And at number 8 is a little bit of a weird one. It's the Florida Panthers, and it's a little weird because there's a little bit of new changes to the Florida's line. You got Carter Verhaeghe, Barkov, and Marchment. Now, Verhaeghe and Barkov, those are first liners for Florida right now. Marchment, that's a bit of a surprise. Over a point per game Mason Marchment is. That trade looked like a steal. Just like everything that Bill Zito has done has been a great move. That Mason Marchment trade now looks amazing. And Alexander Barkov playing like Alexander Barkov does. And then you got Carter Verhaeghe putting up very solid point totals again this season. This line is just amazing, and they've got so much depth. I could probably do their top 3 lines, and they'd all be around the top 10 because their first, second, and third line are all very good. So they may not have the best first line in the league, but they definitely have the best depth in the league. And I'm not even going to look at the other teams' lines. I can just say that, and I'm pretty sure I'm right. Maybe Colorado, but I think it's Florida. But either way, Florida's first line ends up in 8th, a very good first line. But now to number 7, we have the team that eliminated for Florida and the 2-time Stanley Cup champions, Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning right now have Braden Point centering Ondrej Palat and Nikita Kucherov. Nikita Kucherov obviously been hurt most of the season, but when he's been in the lineup, he's been very good. Braden Point, playing about how you'd expect. Quite a bit of goals. Yep, that's really what he does. He scores a lot of goals. And then Ondrej Palat having a very solid season. Just 3 very solid guys who can play good on both sides of the puck. And it's sort of like St. Louis when I said they have 3 really solid guys who just like, that's why they ended up 20th. Just 3 really solid guys, not elite. Tampa Bay just got 3 really solid guys. Maybe like Kucherov's elite, but like good on both sides of the puck. Really good there. Moving on to number 6, and we're just going to wipe off all the Florida teams right here or whatever, because up next is Carolina. Carolina right now has Sebastian Aho centering Andrei Svechnikov and Teuvo Teravainen. Sebastian Aho showing us that offensive potential that we knew was there. Svechnikov showing us that offensive potential that we knew was there. Teravainen showing us that offensive potential. No, Teravainen having a very good year. But this line, so good. You can just watch Andrei Svechnikov and Aho's like magic with the puck. It's so fun to watch. This team is so entertaining. And this line is a huge part of that. And they've just been so dynamic offensively. Moving on to number 5. And number 5, cracking the top 5, is the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars' first line of Jason Robertson, Roope Hintz, and Joe Pavelski is single-handedly trying to drag this team into the playoffs because they don't have a crazy amount of depth. But these 3 guys are just single-handedly trying to get them in. They're like, go in the playoffs. And Dallas is like, no, we don't want to. But like they're just shoving. They're still going. And man, like Jason Robertson, over a point per game. Roope Hintz, slow start, has bounced back, playing fantastic. And Joe Pavelski has been great overall. So this line is fantastic. It's just, if only Dallas had a little more depth, they would definitely be in the playoffs right now. Or if they could just have Sagan and Ben start producing pretty well again, that would help a lot as well. But now to number 4. Not number 4, maybe a little bit controversial. I don't know where you'd have this team, but they're still pretty high. And that's the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado, Andrei Burakovsky is their left winger as listed on Daily Faceoff. And then you got McKinnon and Rantanen as the other 2, again, as listed on Daily Faceoff. McKinnon and Rantanen, very, very good forwards. Amazing, elite forwards. All right, top 20 in the league for sure. Probably both of them. I would guess, probably I could say top 20. And then you got Burakovsky, still a very good player. Not quite at the same level as them. And really, that's kind of what drags them down to 4. And not that Burakovsky's bad, but it's just the other 3 lines are so good that I had to, like, the other 3 lines have 3 very, very good players that Colorado just sort of ended up in that 4th spot. They do still have McKinnon and Rantanen, very good. Imagine if Landeskog was on this line right now and they had that Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen line, first. But right now it's Burakovsky, so kind of drags him, hit my mic, kind of drags him down to 4th. But now moving on to number 3, so the 3rd spot on this list. Actually, we'll only do a drum roll for number 1. At number 3, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins right now have Sidney Crosby centering Jake Getzel and Ryan Rust. All 3 of these guys over a point per game. All 3 of these guys having fantastic season. And I think it's probably one of the most underrated lines in the league. Pittsburgh has a pretty underrated team. I even thought they were going to miss the playoffs. I actually had them in 6th in my predictions for the season. Yeah, it was a rough pick. But either way, Sidney Crosby, although we got off to a slow start, and I was like, oh, is this Sidney Crosby? Is he aging? Nope, he's not aging. Jake Getzel, he's still playing at a fantastic level. Notice that when Crosby came back, his point totals, and then Brian Rust, actually Brian Rust's been very good the whole season, but this is a very well-built and solid line. Moving on to number 2. Now, I'm wearing this Canadian jersey for a reason. Not only because I don't have a large selection of jerseys, but also because the top 2 teams are both Canadian. There are 2 teams left. I'm not going to say number 1. You can figure it out, though, after I say number 2. Because at number 2, I have the Calgary Flames, which is odd. They right now have Elias Lindholm centering Gaudreau and Tkachuk, and this is just such a solid line. It's like Johnny Gaudreau's having a career year, not because this is contract year, surely. He's not thinking about the money. I can almost guarantee that. And then you got Matthew Tkachuk, also not thinking about the money, even though it's a contract year, can guarantee that. And then you got Lindholm, who's on a bargain of a contract, actually. But all 3 of these guys having very good years, all 3 of them over a point per game. And Matthew Tkachuk, you got Matthew Tkachuk doing Matthew Tkachuk things. You know, that just adds to how good the line is and how fun it is to watch. But moving on to number 1. And at number 1, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, yes, there's a desk right there. Leave some stuff on it so that I can read. That's why you see me like looking down sometimes. But anyway, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto, their first line is Austin Matthews centering Michael Bunting and Mitch Marner. All 3 of these guys having fantastic seasons. And one of them, may very well win the Calder. Michael Bunting has in 54 games has 42 points, and he has been fantastic. If I said fantastic a lot, but as we get to the upper half of the list, there's a lot of fantastic going on. But no, Michael Bunting has put up very good points. He's definitely fitting on that first line very well. When you were trying to find that forward to go on that first line, they tried Nick Ritchie, they tried all these guys. It's Michael Bunting. And him and Mitch Marner seem to have great chemistry right now for some reason. And then you got Matthews in the center, putting up goals like there's no tomorrow. And who knows? Honestly, Austin Matthews might be the, could he actually get to those, levels of, Ovechkin-type goals? Because maybe if he plays his whole career and there's no, injury problems or shutdowns, and he can keep scoring at, what he did last year with 40 goals in, 50 games and 37 and 51. These are insane goal totals. And if he can keep doing this, is it possible? Maybe. Let me know in the comments. But with that, I am going to end this list. I have just ranked every single forward line in the NHL. So if you are still here, thank you for watching. And I plan on doing deep pairings and goalies, so I want to rank the other two. I don't know when I'm going to get those done. I'm hoping by the end of next week, both of those will be out, because I still have to do all the planning for that. You have no idea. This video took me 3 hours to rank everything. Look at this, alright? Should I, behind the scenes? Alright, I use paper because, yeah, alright? Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you, hopefully, please like and subscribe, actually. This is the longest outro ever. Please like and subscribe. Please. Thank you. Alright, I will see you in the next video, hopefully. What a